This is Festival Sounds. Hey, Tilly.
Hi, Bilal.
We've got the amazing hosts of How to Build a Festival podcast on this week.
We've got the lovely Rachel, Ross and Kat joining. So exciting.
They're going to tell us about their plans to build a festival. It's their first one, how they got into it. It's a good episode. And they're going to play Am I a Festival Dickhead with us.
So hopefully by the end we will have played Festival Dickhead and they will have answered the age-old question, how do you build a festival?
One quick thing from me. Thank you to all of our listeners who stayed with us over the winter. We know it wasn't festival season, but it really is lovely to get all the likes on Instagram, the messages. We want to give you a shout out, and to all of our new listeners.
Festival season is coming, baby!
We've got the amazing team from How to Build a Festival podcast.
Hi, I'm Kat.
I'm Ross.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
And we're the team at How to Build a Festival. So thanks so much for having us on.
I found your podcast probably January last year. I think you'd only had a couple of episodes out, and I've been a big fan from the start.
Thank you.
How did you end up coming up with the idea to create your own festival?
It's been like a pipe dream of mine for years and years and years, ever since kind of the first festival I ever went to. I was just like blown away by these people who put something on that just brings loads and loads of people together, and everybody's happy, everybody's in a big community, and just feels like you're all in one place sharing the same experience. So that idea of doing something that makes people happy and the community is something I've wanted to do for years and years. And then, but it's a pipe dream, right? That's exactly what it's been. And ironically, it kind of was the sort of crisis of grassroots music and festivals in the last few years that made us think, well, actually, why don't we see if there's something we can do, even really, really small, that would actually add some value and actually be a positive thing. And so it's not that we're trying to do something massive or we haven't got a number of people we want to get to in mind or specific names that we even want on the poster. But we thought, maybe we could do something even small in maybe a space or an area that doesn't have something already that would be really cool and could do that and give people that experience, because we've lost so many festivals and so many grassroots music venues in the last couple of years that actually doesn't matter if it's massive. Maybe a few people would find it something positive out of it, and we might really enjoy it as well. So it seemed like on one hand, a really bad time, but on the other hand, maybe worth a go.
I think this is a classic example of the sort of thing that you talk about when you're in the pub and you slowly convince yourself it's a good idea. A bit like running a marathon or something. Like you talk about it and then eventually you're like, oh, do you know what? We could try this. Why don't we just give it a go? And I think that's essentially where we got to. We convinced ourselves.
Festivals are shutting down. You picked this moment to go, do you know what, guys? I've got this great idea. That's brave. I mean, credit to you. It is brave.
And we've certainly had moments over the sort of the last year and a half since we started doing this where we've thought, oh, we're completely insane. And we've spoken to people who've said, you are completely insane. Like, this is not the time. But having said that, I think people have been so supportive in it, and they've really sort of helped us get to a point where we think it is something we can do actually. But yeah, I mean, we went into this kind of to see if it was possible to build a festival from scratch without a huge amount of experience, to be honest. And I think, we've for sure had moments where we thought maybe the answer was no. But we're getting there now. We're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. So, it's I think we can do it, but we'll see. Maybe we'll be back here telling you that we didn't. You never know.
I mean, it'll be worth it for the story, so.
Right? Do it for the plot.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned, Ross, that since going to your first festival, you wanted to maybe start your own. What was that first festival, and what kind of been the ones that you use as your blueprint? So
my first festival was Green Man. It was 2011, so I was quite late to it. I was early 20s, I guess, at the time. I think my expectation of what a festival was all my mates at uni went to Global Gathering, which is like a huge dance festival, and they had the worst weekend weather-wise I think Britain had for about a decade. They all came back and absolutely hated it, and I thought that's just what festivals were. I went to that festival and just blown away by how the feeling of everybody being there together in the same space, just having an amazing time. And the fact that it wasn't just loads of people kind of having their post GCSE party. There's a place for that. Like, don't get me wrong, that is a great experience too. But I loved the togetherness of it. That for me, I don't know about you, Rach.
Yeah, I think kind of every festival I've been to, kind of like you kind of think, oh, this was amazing, or oh, I wouldn't do that. And you kind of take inspiration from different festivals. Like I used to go to V Festival in Chelmsford because it was like up the road when I was a teenager. And that was my kind of first experience of music festivals. But definitely like, you know, ones I suppose we would aspire to. We talk about a lot on the podcast anyway. So like Green Man, End of the Road, where we saw Bilal and we left Tilly a very strange voicemail.
The best voice note I've ever received.
I'm not sure I told them what was happening. I just pointed my phone at them, pressed record, and said, right, you need to say something to Tilly.
It was incredible. I felt so loved.
I felt the opposite because you know what I get? I get, oh, hi, it's lovely to meet you, Bilal. Where's Tilly?
Because I'm the face, Bilal.
You've got this amazing festival scene that you all three of you have experienced. What part of that are you trying to recreate?
So I think that we, like I say, Ross has talked a bit about the togetherness feeling, and we obviously live in an area of London, or sort of both of us were sort of around this area, and we really wanted to bring something that was kind of more local. So I think it's being able to take that sort of vibe of all being together and all being in one space, but also allowing sort of local bands in this area to have something that they can maybe play at and be a part of. Like, I think it's really important to us, the sort of grassroots music side of this, and that's sort of a big part of the identity. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, you know, we don't want to give too much away, but hopefully there'll be a few surprises, you know, and we'll try and sort of keep that kind of exciting element when you go to a festival. You don't quite know everything that's going to be there before you get there.
Why is the grassroots scene important to you three?
For me, it's festivals is where I've found just about every band that I listen to today, even festivals I haven't been to. Scouring the lineup poster or reading on eFestivals or Discord about these great bands that are in the small print. Like, to me, it's been the discovery journey of festivals that is what has made them such a great experience for me. And so to me, that's why I want to help give those opportunities to people, either to play or to find those bands themselves. And the fact that there's so much bad news about the sector is really kind of driving me to want to do something there.
Yeah, and also just, I don't know, I love kind of seeing a band in a small venue and just kind of having that really kind of, you almost feel like, not that you're on stage with them, but like, you know, if you're there at the start, there's that excitement, there's that kind of like a new band. Like I saw, and it's not like a tiny venue, but I saw the Killers at Electric Ballroom in Camden when they were supporting somebody else, and like that feeling of like seeing a band before they kind of get huge, and you can see that when a band's going to be amazing as well, and it's kind of like quite nice to follow that journey and like see them kind of get bigger. But yeah, it's just like the excitement of kind of seeing new bands and kind of, yeah, just kind of sharing the journey. And often when they're kind of like, this is the biggest gig we've ever played, I'm like, oh, I love you guys.
You feel like you're like wholesome.
I would say as well that actually that piece around supporting grassroots music developed as we developed our identity, like as we sort of talked about what we wanted to do. I don't think we necessarily had that aim as strongly in our heads right at the very beginning. But over the last sort of year and a half, the more you sort of get immersed in, I'm sure you guys have had the same experience, the more you sort of get immersed in this festival world and you speak to people who are involved in music, the more you realize how important it is and how many sort of like jobs and like people's livelihoods are sort of attached to it. And I think, you know, from our side, you know, yeah, we do want to do this festival and we do, you know, want to do that in a way to support music, but we've also just become really involved in, you know, other ways of doing that. So we've been trying to sort of promote smaller venues and go and see other, you know, bands that are playing kind of little mini festivals in London, that type of thing. So, you know, I think that's become more and more important to us as time's gone on, actually.
Are you music insiders?
Couldn't be less. I don't think.
I wish.
Magic. That's the magic of it, though, isn't it? When, for me, as a not an insider, going to a festival and not knowing at all what's going to be there and all that stuff, that's the magic.
Yeah, although we did go to a gig in January where Hugh Stevens and
Stephen
Mack were also out in Dublin Cast, like a tiny little gig, and I did feel a bit like a music. I was like, oh, this must be a good band. Like, we've got some good people here, like, checking them out. So I did feel at that point like a music insider, but that's the only time I think.
I mean, surely as not an insider, you can go to all these festivals and be like, I'm just doing market research, everyone. Just market research. Literally going to every festival.
Someone said to us at the end of the road, they were introducing us to, I won't name them because, they were lovely, but they introduced us to their friends and they were like, oh, these are the guys that have the podcast that they're doing to try and get free festival tickets. And we were like...
You have to call me out like that.
Literally.
Is that true? Are you getting free festival tickets? Because that's amazing. Yet. What a hustle
None yet.
if it is.
None. We've been offered a couple, but we haven't taken up any yet.
Tilly, we are doing this wrong.
We really are. Maybe this is like, hi, nice to meet you. Where's my free festival ticket?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to change the name to How to Build a Festival Sounds.
Festival influencers. But yeah.
But that's quite cool that started to happen. You've got to learn your trade somehow. And part of that is speaking to people who are behind the scenes. You have to go to a lot of these things to understand what makes them tick. And in fact, every festival organizer at one point was just someone who wanted to have a go at it.
That's been really reassuring, actually. So we've been so lucky. We were sort of reached out to people when people have reached out to us, and we've had so much support from people who have run festivals or people who are involved in the industry. They've all been very friendly, incredibly helpful. And it's surprising how many of them started from similar positions. Sometimes they were involved to some degree. Maybe they ran a small venue like a pub or something like that, or maybe they were in a band, or they were sort of involved in some way. But that's not necessarily where the idea for their festivals came from. So that gave us a little bit of confidence, I think.
You've obviously spoken about how important the music side of it is, but how important is the rest of the festival vibe for you? Like the kind of artists, circus, that kind of thing. Like what do you think about having that importance?
Yeah, everyone's going to have to rein me back in as to what is actually realistic for us to do in the first couple of years, I think. But I get that bit of walking around a festival like, Glastonbury, of course, Boomtown I haven't been to, but listening to you guys talk about it and just discovering something new around every corner, that I would love to do something that can give just a little bit of that. And so we've talked about, and one of the reasons why we've been really kind of taking our time with settling on a venue, because we had a couple of things that came up that we could have had, but we wanted to find something that supports that and will enable that and will give people that feeling of being in this incredible immersive space, even if we can only just do a little part of it. So to me, that's the festival experience.
There's a fine line between the Willy Wonka experience we saw a couple of years ago and Boomtown.
Is there a fine line? I don't know.
You're trying to say they're going to be Willy Wonka.
Yeah, you're like, is this a bad time to tell you that it's a Willy Wonka themed festival?
But whilst you have this temptation to create like this amazing thing, how do you balance that with let's put something on that works so we can learn? And it might not be the final product, but we know we're going to get there. How do you balance that? There must be a trade-off in there.
Yeah, and we definitely came into this quite ambitiously and we've sort of scaled back. So we talked initially about wanting to have like a festival in a field, like start it from scratch, practically build the bars ourselves. We were completely, I think, unrealistic to start with. And I think working with other people and speaking to other people has really helped. Most of them said, for example, look, you want to start with a multi-venue festival in an infrastructure that already exists. Like you don't want to be kind of creating your own infrastructure. You won't get approval because you don't have experience. Like you need to be sort of tried and tested before you do something like that. So yeah, I think, and like Ross says, we have to try and rein him in a little bit sometimes. But I think what we've sort of come to realize is that, the first sort of iteration of the festival won't necessarily be like the end result. Like if you go to Boomtown now, I'm sure that it's not, I'm sure it's 1,000 miles away from what it was like when it first kicked off. And most festival organisers have said to us, we build year on year. So you slowly build, you think, okay, well, you add a stage or you might add a different experience. And that's where we're sort of thinking now. So we're thinking, okay, we start small to build.
Okay, so the three of you must have some chats where one of you goes, no, I want a chocolate river. And the other one says, no, come on. We agreed. 3 bands, 3 venues.
Just a chocolate fountain.
Have you had that amongst you as a team, this like, oh my God, what are we trying to achieve? How do we figure this out? That creative side must be amazing at the same time, but it's also, you've got 3 strong personalities at play here.
Yeah, I think I'm probably the person reining everyone in. I'm more like thinking about logistics and how's this going to work and blah, blah, blah. But I think, it's great to have all those ideas. And as Kat said, we want to kind of build and kind of, I don't think we've had any real diva moments so far. Luckily, we all kind of, get on well and we're all pretty much on the same page.
Well, there are a few things that we have kind of, we still haven't fully decided. And I don't mind sharing one of them, actually. So I would really like the festival to have a social media blackout. So I don't think you should have your phone available, or you should have to put like a black square on it. And we're still talking about that. We're still back and forthing on that one.
That's interesting.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I like the idea that you could like still film videos like for you, like for your person to watch back later, but you're not posting on like Instagram or anything. That's interesting.
I've been to stand-up gigs where they give you a pouch and you lock your phone away. I think people are getting used to that. I've never encountered it at a festival type setup, so you'd be the first probably.
I read a social media post by a band who was saying that they find it really difficult sometimes when they're playing and they just look out into like a sea of screens. So like all they can see back is like cameras looking at them. And that's kind of where I was thinking. And sometimes, you watch people, right, filming things on their phones and you're like, are you ever going to watch that? Like, are you really going to sit and watch that back?
My pet hate is when people film the screen. I'm like, the actual person's right in front of you. Like, why are you filming the like screen? Oh, literally, it makes my blood boil, and I have to hold myself back because I'm like, they don't know I hate them. That person doesn't know I hate them, but like it makes me irrationally angry.
So true.
With small bands, though, are you denying them the exposure?
Yeah, exactly. And this is the debate, right? Because it's such an interesting idea. But yeah, 1, are you limiting exposure? 2, we're kind of taking clips of gigs and using it to promote our own social media accounts. So and 3, I think I'm more into it if we get the venue we want, because it's so cool that I think you could build something up around that and kind of have it as a bit of a thing. But back to the point about the Willy Wonka thing, if you're going to ban people from filming something that is basically just a room, then I think that's not as interesting. But I love the idea that we try a few things that are a bit different to what other bigger and actually starting from the ground up and being like, it's going to be relatively low budget. Like, it does also give us opportunity to try things that some bigger, more well-established festivals can't do.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's that thing about, people everyone is so kind of, on their phone, social media, like, everything. It'd be just good to get people to kind of switch off, really kind of immerse themselves in where they are, what they're doing, and, just be watching the band. Like, I can't remember who it was, Kat. I sent you a video of a few weeks ago at Brixton where literally the whole audience were like filming, you could just see this sea of phones. Irish band. Oh my goodness,
Was it Inhaler?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was Inhaler.
Inhaler, yeah. And it was just maybe I'm showing my age, but it was just like, oh my goodness, those people just like all filming it. No one's actually watching it and experiencing it. And I think that's something that I love about live music and live performance is you just kind of, you're there just watching, and it's not, you don't have that kind of, you don't need that distraction.
We've been so lucky with the podcast, and this is something I think happened quicker than I was ready for, or any of us were ready for. Actually, I'm normally the pessimist in some ways. People have got in touch with great ideas and great ways that they can help, and some of that has included some of the different things, Tilly, that you mentioned, that beyond the bands and ideas that I never would have thought of in a million years that actually sound like you could pull them off quite cheaply, and that's been, for me anyway, by far the most exciting thing about doing it has been that people are getting in touch who are interested in the story. And part of it, I think we were all like, this would be fun to record because at a minimum we can look back on it in 20 years and laugh at ourselves. But actually people have got in touch and been willing to help in like really tangible ways.
I mean, I think we offered this last time, but if you need 2 stewards, me and Bilal are available.
100%.
Hi, Ed.
I think you can see just from that social media conversation, right? We definitely disagree on certain things, but I think overall we've got really similar tastes in festivals and what we like. And when we first talked about this, about like our kind of festival likes and dislikes and things like that, we were surprised by how consistent we were. So that's been helpful. We definitely we have the same sort of music taste and that kind of thing. So that's been helpful overall.
Your music taste is excellent. I look forward to your podcast because I'm always adding to a playlist after I've listened. Anyone you're looking to book, if it's based on who you discuss on the podcast, they're going to be really, really good. Do you have any ideas as to how you'll steer the audience based on the bands you're booking? Do you kind of have a profile that if we book these kind of bands, we'll attract that kind of audience without revealing any secrets?
We've been so venue driven. Once we've got this venue nailed down, fingers crossed very, very soon, there are some very distinct spaces in that set of venues where we will look to try and give each one an identity for the festival and put some artists on that have it, mean you've got a theme running through each one, right? That will be one thing. We want to do something with a lot of local bands, and we want to try and have some of the artists on that we've interviewed on our podcast as well, and have a bit of a theme running back to the podcast too. And some of those actually, I mean, one of the guys we interviewed last year who we found busking in Camden is when we met him first. He supported the Libertines last year. And incredible. So an incredible journey he's been on in the last year. And he's really keen to come and play. So we're hoping that kind of that journey of the festival, especially for the first one, that journey of the festival, plus like we can advertise and market locally, that we can really create a bit of a storyline from that. But we are at the moment, we're so, and I hate that we really wanted to come on today and be able to kind of announce it and talk specifically about the venue, but we've been so hinging everything on this venue. The big thing will be we'll try and create a storyline that has all the artists and bands involved in it through the set of venues that we're looking at.
We don't want you to announce the venue here.
I mean, we would love it, but
for our listeners, this is a good time to say I'll put a link to your podcast in the show notes. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, I think you'll enjoy listening to How to Build a Festival. If you want more civilized discourse around new artists, you're probably better going to your podcast than listening to Tilly and I.
We just end up roasting everybody.
Or in the last 2 episodes, what was it? Razorlight and the Wombats cocktail.
Poor Wombats. They never did anything to deserve it.
You are definitely nicer and more focused on bringing new artists to the front on your shows. I would recommend to the listeners to go listen there. And that's where you should announce it. That would be amazing. Are you close to announcing something?
We very much hope to announce something by the end of this month. So, watch the space. Go follow us on social media as well. And hopefully we'll have something to share very soon.
That's exciting. This is cool. Can you tell us what you're going to share without sharing what you're sharing?
Tease the teaser.
Well, okay. So we can only really say kind of, potential thing. So we're hoping to put something on later this year, the end of September. But yeah, I think that's all we can really say for now. You have to listen and find out.
So please do come and listen to the podcast, because the journey, once we've got the venue, is going to be pretty quick. So I think at that stage, we're going to be making decisions like week by week by week. As Ross mentioned earlier, we've very much taken our time so far, and that's because we've had the luxury of doing that. But we won't have that once we've signed up to go ahead in September. So please do come and listen to How to Build a Festival. I think hopefully you'll enjoy it.
And clearly, you do take the input from listeners on board, if people have got ideas. So if everyone just goes and gives you so many ideas, then maybe it'll help you out.
We definitely need help with the name of the festival. That is something that we are very much still discussing.
So you already said you're coming to this whole thing from a point of view of never having done any event like this before. How do you know, how to put the stage up, how to set the lights on, how to turn the mic on? Is that something that you've researched?
Great question. So no, we, like I said earlier, we have really been overwhelmed by support from various different angles, and we would love to continue that. So if anyone is listening and they know how to plug in speakers, maybe not quite that, but if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, I'd really like to be involved, that sounds cool, and you are involved in lights or cameras or whatever it might be, then please do get in touch at How to Build a Festival. You can contact us directly on Instagram or on Blue Sky. And we would be so happy to sort of either have you on the podcast, or some people don't want to be recorded. That's fine too. We've had people reach out who want to help, but don't want to sort of actually come on the podcast. And they've been so helpful behind the scenes. So yeah, I think that's a shout out to everyone to come and help us if they're interested. The rest of it, we're just going to have to make it up as we go along, which is what we've been doing so far. So far, so good.
I might start sending you anonymous, really rogue suggestions. You should have a giant bouncy castle, and you'll be like, who was that from?
Weirdly, Ross actually said that the weekend.
Yes. Maybe it's not a weird suggestion after all.
I think it would be great. I love a bouncy castle.
We're very democratized. All ideas are welcome. There's no bad ideas.
Nice.
No, there's no bad ideas.
Except some of the names we've come up with so far.
Can't let you go without playing Am I a Festival Dickhead? And this is one that has been sent in to us by a listener called Charlotte. Now, I've changed her name just because I think she might get into trouble if her friend is listening to the show. Charlotte has a Glastonbury ticket, but her friend has chosen to get married this summer. Now, the wedding is in July, but the hen do is Glastonbury weekend, and her friend is saying, I really want you to be at the hen do. She's not a bridesmaid or maid of honour, but she's a friend. Is she a festival dickhead for going to Glastonbury and not her friend's hen do?
I think she would be a festival dickhead if she went to the hen do and didn't go to Glastonbury. That's my genuine opinion. If you have a Glastonbury ticket, it's a golden ticket, and you don't use it, to me, that's a big crime.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think, imagine you'd booked a holiday that far in advance. You wouldn't look like the dickhead to go on holiday if you've pre-booked. You spent money, you've pre-booked. So I think Glastonbury is no different to a holiday. So I would also agree that you're not a dickhead.
And I think that's safe to assume, because in the message that we got, it said the wedding was July. So everyone's gone and got themselves Glastonbury tickets. They got lucky in the draw. Now you're choosing to set up the hen do, which you can do on any date. Rachel, you're giving me a look.
No, I'm just I'm traumatized by this because it wasn't quite the same, but I had been bought tickets by my sister to go and see Arctic Monkeys in Finsbury Park, and it was my friend's hen party on the same day, and I decided to go to the hen party and not to go to Arctic Monkeys. I have seen Arctic Monkeys now, but it took me another several years to see them. The hen is now no longer married, so I wonder wonder about my choices. It's bringing back some trauma to me.
I'm trying to be impartial here. Are we suggesting that Charlotte weighs up the likelihood of it being a successful marriage before she decides to go to the...
Marriages end, but gigs are forever, so...
I think she should go to Glastonbury, to be fair.
Again, I'm just trying to be neutral here. Glastonbury does take place most years. You know, the wedding doesn't take place most years, if it's done well, I suppose.
And if it was the wedding, I do think you've got a slightly different conversation. I still don't know what I would do. And I hope it never happens.
You're saying if it's wedding, it's a dilemma, but a hen do is no dilemma at all. Is that genuinely... No. I've got 4 people looking at me saying a hen do doesn't matter. I mean, I've never been to a hen do.
Why wouldn't you just try and get the hen do to go to Glastonbury? That would be the best hen do ever.
Agreed.
So my guess is if she has gone to the trouble of messaging the show, she's already tried to get the hen do on a different date. I wonder how much the maid of honour didn't get a Glastonbury ticket and thought, I'll show you, Charlotte.
Yeah.
That's so true.
If they put the hen do on Glastonbury dates as well, like they probably don't know that you can still get most of your money back at this point as well. So you just say, look, I'm committed. The funds are down. They're gone.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do.
If you've grown up with this person, why am I on the bride side here? I don't know. But
you are.
If you've grown up with this person, and I think it's because I'm one for sentiment and the romance of it all, the hen do is a big thing. It's like a rite of passage thing. Her friend might not be a festival person at all, and I suspect isn't a festival person. They don't get it as to what Glastonbury is. They might not get it as to how hard it is to get a ticket. But once that date is set, surely it's on Charlotte just to show up to the hen do, because that friendship could be for life, even if the husband isn't.
But I definitely take your point, although Ross definitely sort of not threatened his brother, but was basically like, you cannot get married on Green Man Week. And I think to my brother as well, weren't you? We couldn't go to End of the Road because, you know, my brother was getting married. I totally, because I think a lot of people, obviously you're talking to people who are big festival fans, and, you know, Glastonbury is like, you know, the festival. So we're all very torn. But I think, you know, if you don't understand about the joy of, you know, the joy of festivals and the joy of actually getting a Glastonbury ticket, for those of us who don't have Glastonbury tickets, sob. Yeah, it probably would be quite upsetting to the bride, and that it could cause some drama. So if you want to avoid drama, I guess you might not. And you want, obviously, you know, you want to kind of make your friend happy, but it's such a difficult dilemma.
No, it's not.
I can see how from the yeah, fair enough. From the outside looking in, people might think you're a dickhead, but in your heart, you would know that you're not a festival dickhead.
Charlotte, you're not a festival dickhead. Go to Glastonbury. That's my advice.
I think I'm 90% to she's not a dickhead for going. My last thing here, what if it ends up being a rainy, muddy Glastonbury?
The only thing I'll give is if Charlotte just gets tickets every year and knows she's gotten in every year, then I think she should be going to the hen. But if she's like the rest of us and it's like a once every 3 or 4 Glastonbury's event, I think she doesn't know. She might never get Glastonbury tickets again. Her friend might well get married again.
In 3 or 4 years, it's probably, that's about the time frame, right? Have we decided?
Yeah.
Is this a first where we turn around and say, no, you're not a festival dickhead?
I think it might be.
For me, no question.
How to build a festival. I'm putting it on them, not us. How to build a festival is saying you are not a festival dickhead for showing up at Glastonbury over your friend's hen do.
Sorry to the bride.
Yeah, but if you do go to the hen do, one of us will have your ticket.
I think probably mainly Kat, because she was the first in to be like, no.
Oh my God, you're right. You should not go. Charlotte, do you look a bit like me? Check on Instagram. Maybe I can sneak in.
DM how to build a festival, and if there's a resemblance, we will take our chances with the Oxfam stewards on the gate.
100%.
Actually, Tilly, I've been thinking, should we record an episode how to get into Glastonbury? Like, in ways you shouldn't.
What, like how to dig under the fence?
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks so much for listening. This has been Festival Sounds. See you next time.
If you don't mind, can you give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple?